All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to what's normally called Live with Jeff, Johnny, and Lee. But, well, after everything that's going on, we've decided to rename the show, or we didn't really decide, we just did it anyway, to Blacklisted with Jeff, Johnny, and Lee. Jeff and Johnny, how are you guys today?
Good, good. Glad to be here.
Okay, so far?
All right, well, it looks like we got a lot going on today. Johnny, you had a couple things that you wanted to touch on first, and then Jeff, you got anything that you want to bring to the surface here? Oh, you are kidding me.
You've got
to be kidding me.
You're kidding me, right?
No.
He called who ungrateful?
This is unbelievable. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
How is this possible?
I don't know.
Denial of service attacks.
This is Why is it only when I have a conference call with you two?
Because we're the problem.
We're the problem.
This is unbelievable.
They don't want the point of view that we articulate to be out there.
They don't want the truth. I had 90 people in this thing the other night, and it worked perfectly with 90 people for hours. And I've been on with everybody. This only happens when...
But they don't care what those people say.
Right,
they don't want. They don't want what we're about to say to be heard. They don't want your 40,000 listeners to hear what we're going to say.
Right. Racer said that he has set up a StreamYard, so if this persists, we'll move over there. And hopefully they won't do the same thing. All right, Racer, send me the StreamYard information.
They're bots to zero in on us.
Racer is sending me the StreamYard information right now.
Okay. All right.
You'll forward that to me on
I'll
Teams,
send it to Johnny,
okay.
And Johnny will get it to you. So, this is crazy. This is proof, folks. This is absolute 100% proof. You guys, all of you on the network, you have used this network. You have seen how perfectly it works. It works every time. It works every day. There has never, ever been anything like this. We've had a couple times where people had an issue logging in or something, but to be repeatedly kicked out of the device. And I love how when we're not talking about anything important, it stays up.
Yeah. And we were fine for a half an hour before we started.
Correct.
Can I even speak before they kick us out? Is that possible?
Did they just kick us out just now?
Yeah, kick me out again.
The minute Johnny said something.
Yeah.
So it's programmed to react to our voices.
Guys, this is not ScrewTube. This is a Jitsi server that we use regularly that we have never had issues with at all.
There he goes again.
No, I'm still here.
He's still there. He's hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you say certain
just as you said that.
Is you say certain things and it cuts you off.
I think I know what to say to cause it to cut off.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I have the link here for StreamYard. Yes, sir. I'm live. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I am going to log into your machine and we can pull in your stream from StreamYard. We could possibly go into StreamYard.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sending the same link to Johnny right now, so they can log in too.
I will have to pull the feed from your machine into the stream there.
I know, but it's knocking me off with Jeff and Johnny, and so because it's knocking me off with Jeff and Johnny, they need to be brought into StreamYard too because I'm losing connection with them.
Right. I will connect all of you all and then pull the feed into your OBS.
Okay. All right. So I'm sending Johnny the link right now, and then he's going to send that to Jeff. All right, guys. I'll see you over on StreamYard.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Hi, guys. I'll see you over on StreamYard.
Check test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
One, two, three, four, five.
Audio. All right, I'm in here.
All right, I'm adding you in. And when they get there, we'll add all of you all to the stream.
All right.
You'll bring this display in here.
Over here.
And I'm waiting for them to join StreamYard.
Hello?
Yeah, you're here.
All right. How do I turn your volume down just a little bit?
I don't know.
This is an emergency StreamYard. I don't have an account with them, so it'll only be 720p, but we'll still make it
That's
work.
fine. I'm streaming 1080. I'm streaming 1080. I'm just going to get it over here.
As soon as he joins, I'll be able to add him. Oh, he just went offline. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Straight ahead. Can you have my audio? Yes.
All right, you got me?
Yeah,
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're still waiting on Jeff.
Do you have my audio?
Yes.
Okay.
President, to welcome home our six fallen. It was an honor and a privilege for me to be there and to say thank you to their families. And I want to mention their names this morning. From the 6th Aerial Refueling Wing out of MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, but stationed as part of an active associate unit at Birmingham, Alabama, Major Alex
Are you able to hear that?
Klenner, John
No,
Alex
sir.
Klenner. Major Ariana Savino, she was posthumously promoted from captain to major, and Technical Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, the boom operator on that crew. From the 121st Aerial Refueling Ring, Ohio Air National Guard out of Rickenbacker Air National Guard Base in Columbus, Ohio, Captain Seth Koval, Captain Curtis Anks, and now Master Sergeant Tyler Simmons, who was also promoted in the boom operator on that crew. To a person and every family member I spoke with yesterday, they all shared that their family members loved serving. They loved being part of a great team and a crew, and they loved airplanes and aviation. Our nation's tanker crews really are unsung heroes, incredible warriors who put their lives on the line so we can continue to take the fight to an enemy. I've personally witnessed their courage and tenacity many times, from the morning of September 11th, where they answered my call for some help, to the skies over foreign countries where they've come forward out of their safe tanker track to give me gas when I simply could not leave a ground force that was engaged in a firefight. They've answered the call and come forward time and time and time again. I'm filled with incredible pride and gratitude for all that the tanker crews do, our pilots, our boom operators, and the
Johnny, did you
maintainers.
send this to Jeff?
And to the families of our six
I did,
fallen,
yes.
know that we share your
There you go.
grief. Our nation will never forget their sacrifice, and we will never forget.
All right, Jeff, welcome aboard here, sir.
All right. Well, good. I got on the stream. I had to make sure my camera and stuff were working right for this.
All right, well, we're here now. Hopefully they won't knock us off of this. I can't believe this with Jitsi. And I've had my people check it, and they can't find anything wrong on our end. So we have no idea why they're doing that. All right, so, wow, that's crazy.
Yes, it's a little bit weird, isn't it?
Just those two guys.
Yeah, just put them two up there.
Okay. Let me make a new format here.
An F-35 did not crash. An F-35 was not shot down. An F-35 sustained damage in some way and had to make an emergency landing. The video that's going around is a video from Israel from March the 5th. It is not a U.S. F-35 being shot down.
It's re-showing your video, Lee. You can just turn off. There you go.
Yeah, but that's I'm trying to.
Well, you know, Lee, you could just put yourself up there. That way all three of us are on the screen talking.
Yeah, well, but see if I do that, then well, actually it did work, but it's not going
See?
out. The only thing that's going out is me.
There you go.
Right, but the only thing that the people are seeing is me. They're not
Right,
seeing.
let's see three up there, but if you want
No,
to add a screen-
my stream going out is only showing me. It is not showing that.
Okay. Give me
Okay.
a second. I will add them to your stream.
Okay, so. Well, no, I was just trying to turn off self view of me, like that, and then I can go like that, and I got it. So there we go. That's them. This is me. We got it. Perfect. All right. Now that the disasters from last week and this week have now passed on trying to make communications through Jitsi, let's get this ball rolling. So, Johnny, where do you want to start before we were so rudely interrupted?
Rudely
by-
interrupted. Yeah. So this morning during the press conference, I was informed that I think they kind of said the quiet part out loud. They said that there's no timeline to pull out. So we don't have an established off ramp. And I heard last night, I'm sure you heard as well, that the administration is weighing the option of sending thousands of more troops over there. So it's going to be boots on the ground, and you're just going to have to go in. Last night, there was a meeting in Riyadh in the middle of the night for them of all the nations that have been under attack over there. And they've essentially, they've tried to hash out a plan as to what they're going to do. But see, the bigger problem here is that if we examine the Gulf states, not including Iran, of course, but if you examine all of our allies in that region, then a lot of them have been spending years, decades, buying their hardware from us. And it's nice, it's top of the line. It's some of the best we've got. Our fighters, our anti-air systems, our weapons, all of it, our systems that go with it. They have all this stuff. They've got all the shiny kit. But the problem is that they don't have long-range strike when it comes to aircraft. They've got intercept, right? That's what they've got for their fighters. Their troops, their ground forces are basically for domestic use. They're not for going into another country like this. They're not for going into Iran or anywhere else. That's not what they've been trained to do. And then one of the bigger problems that they have, and I was told this afternoon, is all of these countries, the biggest thing that they have in common when it comes to their armed forces is that they don't have engineering units. None of them do. So if you go in and then you start causing all this damage, well, then you're going to need engineers in there to start repairing and fixing things. And they don't have them. So I'm not exactly sure how effective they're going to be in any kind of offensive against Iran. So we have a number of issues here that we've got to worry about. The economic implications that Jeff was talking about last night on our show, referencing Professor Neil Ferguson, not the other Neil Ferguson from Imperial College London, different guy. But there's a lot of things that are going on here. And now today, Iran has said that, well, it's possible that we could just implement a toll for the Strait of Hormuz. You can pay a toll to get through, and we'll leave you alone. So, there's a lot of things in play here, but again, no off ramp. We're not showing a sign of drawing down. We're reinforcing everything over there.
They didn't think this through at the Pentagon, Mr. Hegseth and his look. War is constant innovations. Look, the Ukrainians come up with a new form of drone every few weeks. The Russians can't keep up with it. If the Russians think of a counter, the Ukrainians are ahead of them. This is how Ukraine is staying ahead of the Russians. We need to get with the Ukrainians. But what does Pete Hegseth say? Oh, we don't need them. Look, they're the cutting edge in drone warfare. The Iranians copied our drone, and the Shaheeds are coming back on us. You cannot protect these oil fields. You've got underwater drones that are hitting tankers. You've got these fast boats in caves all along the coast. There was no preparation. There was no forethought for any of these things. You cannot have that waterway, the most sensitive waterway in the world, closed for weeks. You have this closed for more than a month, you're going to have financial crashes. You're going to have banks failing. You're going to have massive inflation in the United States. We exist as a great power, and the dollar is the world's currency because we guarantee those straits. Now we prove that we can't. This is a fiasco. We should have never started a war when we weren't able to defend the thing we claim we can defend. We are a great power and a great financial power, and most of our ability to spend money comes from the tax we get from exporting our inflation because they use the dollar as a trading currency because we defend the Strait of Hormuz and our allies' interests. You take that away, and there's no reason to support the dollar for anyone.
Well,
Did
the
they
other
think this
thing,
through?
the other thing I've noticed about this conflict is, and I had a debate with AI the other night for a couple hours until I finally convinced AI that the warfare that we're actually carrying out. Ooh, wow, there was just a fighter out in the middle of the Persian. The the argument that I was having with AI is that this particular war has been guerrilla warfare with air power. And I went through the definition of guerrilla warfare with the AI, every point to guerrilla warfare. And this applies mainly because of, well, because of everything, but it had 6 points that said that I was wrong, and I proved all 6 points that I was right. And the one that it insisted that I was wrong was guerrilla warfare has to be irregular warfare. And the AI argued that this is standard tactical bombing, and I'm like, no, it's not. And the reason it's not is because the leader of a foreign country was struck on the first strike. The initial strike was on the leadership, and the U.S. was part of that. Never in history has the United States opening strike against a country been against its leadership and taken that leadership out. There's been attacks on a variety of places.
Actually, a correction on that. In the Gulf War, there was an attempt to kill Saddam Hussein. I believe it was at a restaurant at the very opening of that. And they
Yeah, but that wasn't
they didn't kill him, but they killed everybody in the restaurant.
Okay, but well, okay, I wasn't aware.
Which specific restaurant were you thinking of?
What the hell?
At the beginning of the Gulf War, they tried to kill Saddam Hussein. They
My
heard he was
fucking
at a
AI
restaurant.
is
They hit the
talking to
restaurant.
me right now by itself.
I don't remember the name of the restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, that was freaking 25 years ago.
No, that was AI talking to you. My phone just started talking by itself.
Oh, your phone. Oh, what
I
a
didn't
AI,
really
great
have it turned
AI heard you say a restaurant, and then it asked what
My
restaurant
phone
you were
responded
referring
back,
to.
and the phone's been laying there for
Yeah.
ever since I hung up. with
They had good ribs, you know. No,
Yeah.
Mongolian barbecue. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
They made a giant crater in the ground where it was. Look, I I understand attack of command and control. I understand the idea of attacking leaders. This is wrong. This is not a right way to prosecute a war.
Well, it's
You-
illegal. Reagan
It's
passed.
yes, according to the International
They're
Human
calling
Rights
it.
Convention, it's illegal.
Well, it's also
It's,
it's also against executive order under Reagan that says
yeah,
that we will
it's
not
no
attack the leader
assassination,
of a
but it's
foreign
also
country.
beside all that. It's you have a broken moral compass, and it's impractical. You can't negotiate. You're negotiating with people. And there's also the treachery aspect. Definitely, it's perfidious when you're negotiating with people and you have a deadline to kill them before the deadline for negotiations to end, because you have explicitly stated, "Oh, I'm not going to attack you until this date." And then you attack them before that date. You're the one that gave them the idea they were safe. That's treachery. I don't know if you're moral. I know people who have their high horse. These are evil Iranians, blah, blah, blah. Screw you. You got a broken moral compass. Wake up. You're as bad as they are if you're using these tactics. And this is a problem with Israel, the way they kill people. I understand that these people, you know, are terrorists. You can call them bandits, but they're also heads of a real state. And it's a problem for us. The reason we're fighting them is that they're this way. But you have to either, if you don't have the will to go in and occupy their country and defeat them, the way we did with Saddam, if you don't have the will to fight that, then this is what you have to put up with. And killing them, killing the leaders, it isn't going to work. Because they're so nuts, there's always people ready to come up and take their place. And guess what? The people who take their place are going to be more hardline than the people you just killed.
Yep.
Believe it or not, the son of Khomeini is more hardline than the father.
Wow.
That's a fact. So what did you do? You just didn't accomplish anything.
It's just like Kim Jong Un, right? Kim Jong Il was worse than Kim Il Sung,
Yeah.
and now Kim Jong Un is worse than Kim Jong Il, and his daughter and what is it? His sister? His
Yeah, his
sister's more
sister is a
ruthless
real
than he is.
psycho. Yeah.
Oh
his
yeah,
sister's
she's
a real
more ruthless than he is.
Yeah. No. Look, this power corrupts and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. Look, the Iranian regime, and also people say, well, they're religious fanatics. They get the bomb, they're going to use it. You know what? Joseph Bodansky said they had the bomb in the 1990s. I think they've already had nuclear weapons. They certainly, the idea that they don't have them, Israel is quiet about whether they have them. We know Israel has them. Let's be honest. Iran probably has the bomb. But everybody knows what happens when you use a nuclear weapon. You just get destroyed. So let's keep this conventional. Well, this is very comfortable for them because they thought this out really well. They thought it out better than we did. They got their fast boats, they got their mines, they got their underwater drones. They can close the Strait of Hormuz. There's nothing you can do because you never bothered to develop a form of warfare to protect against that kind of attack. And now with drones, I mean, look, the Ukrainians, tiny Ukraine that supposedly was going to be overrun in 2 weeks, they're hitting Moscow with drones. They're hitting places in the Urals. You had Sergei Shoigu give a speech saying they hit an ammonia plant in the Urals. 1,000 kilometers away from Ukraine, they hit this plant. So you tell me, if little Ukraine can be basically burning Russian oil refineries, destroying factories in Russia and plants and ammunition plants in Russia, you think the Iranians can't do that? Iran, compared to Ukraine, Iran has twice as many people, more than twice as many people as Ukraine. They're capable people. And they can build rockets and they can build drones. And they were, in fact, supplying drones to Russia. And then the Chinese will ship them drones and missiles. So you think they can't keep this up? How is
The
it going to end
Chinese are
exactly?
shipping them drones and missiles.
Yeah.
We got convoys of Chinese trucks going into Iran right now claiming they're humanitarian aid.
Yes. And it will be, they'll export not only the drones that you're talking about, Jeff, they'll export the manufacturing materials and all of the hardware to do it with too. So that's what Russia and China have done, is they have exported their mass drone manufacturing to places like Iran. And I will bet, I'm just betting that that's exactly what they've done in Cuba, and that's what they're doing in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. No, and you know, that we've heard about in Cuba how they've dug tunnels. They got all along the coast of Cuba, there's tunnels running up and down. Yep. There's bunkers intertwined. It's just like what the Russians are doing on the border with NATO. It's massive tunnels. It's massive bunkers. Iran's the same thing. Tunneling into mountains, tunneling into caves on the coast, caves, tunnels. You can't. It's like the Japanese. How did the Japanese fight us in World War II? They lost air superiority. They lost control of the sea. So they had armies sitting on vital islands. And what were they? They were honeycombed with tunnels. Look at the Battle of Okinawa. The U.S. Army had to give up air superiority, battleships pounding it. Japanese were sitting down inside their hidey holes. They come up, they wipe out the American attack. They go back in their hidey holes. You have to understand that when you control the air, when you control the sea, they're going to dig tunnels. This is what China does, Russia does, Iran does. All of them do this. So how are you going to stop this? You have to have a way to cope with this. And it is technological innovation, strategic creativity, but they didn't bother. Oh, we don't need to talk to the Ukrainians.
Lee, is this are these trucks that you're talking about, these Chinese trucks, are these the ones that you're speaking of, the ones that are coming out of Tajikistan?
Yes, sir.
Going into to Iran?
Yes, sir.
Look at all these, Jeff. These are going into Iran out of Tajikistan now.
Yeah, look at Tajikistan. What a great thing. Look at that. It's a giant, and you know what they're carrying. Ammunition,
yes,
drones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
More drones, because why? Because the Iranians, look, if we destroy 8 out of 10 of those drones, they're still going to get to fire 2 out of 10. And that means they can keep hitting merchant ships and tankers. And it isn't just the oil going out. That's strangling Japan and South Korea and Europe and Australia. It's the merchant ships coming in with food. These countries, they can't grow any food. These people are completely dependent on food being shipped into them, right? So you close the airports, you prevent the merchant ships from coming in through the straits. How long before the 50 million people of the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia begin to not have any food? When is that going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right? This cannot, look, if they had positioned ground forces, if they had all our air mobile forces, they had a good plan, they had ground forces positioned, they could have blitzed Iran, and in 3 weeks by now, we could be in Tehran with the Iranian people cheering our people on. We could be arming those people. We could be dropping weapons to the Iranian people. We could be bringing the Shah's son, the crown prince, in there. We could be doing that now, but we didn't prepare any of that. We prepared for a pure air campaign, and everybody says, oh, we can defeat Iran. We can have a regime change with an air campaign. When did anybody do that? Even with Gaddafi, there were rebel troops on the ground to take advantage of the airstrikes. He was practically in a civil war. You don't have a civil war. You don't have any opposing troops on the ground in Iran. People with their bare hands, what, they're going to get blasted in the street. So
The IRGC's already said that. If you come out in the streets, we're just going to mow you down. We're just going to cut you down.
no.
So this was, you know,
We had video of that
it's
the
not
other day,
well
but they
thought
couldn't
out.
show it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went in, we started these airstrikes on the pretext and the condition that Iran was not to get a nuclear bomb. Is that right? I mean, that's kind of what all this was about. But isn't that admitting that the strikes that they did last year, so Operation Midnight Hammer, isn't that saying that they failed at that? Because they were supposed to have destroyed everything.
Well, the Russian flights bringing bomb parts in, and the Chinese bringing hypersonic missiles in. The word I got
Okay,
was
so-
the Iranians were trying to put a Russian nuke with Iranian material in the front of a hypersonic glide vehicle from China to hit the east coast of the U.S.
Okay, so I believe every word you're saying. So by that, shouldn't we be out dealing with the source of that problem as opposed to dealing with the satellite of that problem?
You would think, but we don't want to admit that.
We don't want to admit that. So it's for the same reason we can't admit that we just walked into a strategic disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my concern is we've done that now. Lee, did you catch Trump yesterday in the Oval Office saying that he can do anything he wants with Cuba? And he says, oh, I can just take it if I want to. And well, yeah, I'll probably take it. I guess I could.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So
I can do anything I want with Cuba. You know, I can put it under
Yeah.
the Christmas tree. I can sell it to the circus. You know, I'm exaggerating, but I mean, it was odd. It was a maniac kind of speech. I can do anything. No, you can do anything, but there'll be consequences for
It's
whatever
another
you
trap.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
Cuba's
do
another
an
trap.
amphibious invasion, if they have if they have thousands of drones in Cuba and you do an invasion, what will happen to the landing ships? What will happen to your supply line once you get the troops there? If there's drones swarming everywhere, can the army do an amphib invasion against drones?
No.
Can helicopters
try.
withstand drone?
No, we've not prepared for that. We've not done it. And, you know, Trump's comment and Hegseth's comment saying we don't need the Ukrainians for anything. Let me just do a basic cost analysis. I sent this to you the other day, Jeff. So right now, the Russians are producing the Shahed drone, or that's the Iranian variant of it. That's their name for it. The Duran 2 is the Russian designation for it. Right now, they're producing those drones for anywhere between 20,000 to 50,000 per unit, depending on what they task it to do. Our counter to that is if we can catch it in time, right? Because these things sometimes don't pop up on radar. If we can catch it in time, then we're going to shoot it down. Well, it's costing us anywhere between 3 and 12 million a shot to take one of these things down. The Ukrainians have developed and you're probably familiar with it, Lee, you've probably seen it before. They've developed the bullet drone to counter this, which is a drone to go up and get it. This thing will track the drone and then take it out autonomously, or it can be piloted by an operator for assist or any other operation, and it can be used to take out helicopters as well. Has a maximum speed of 300 kilometers per hour. The Ukrainians are pumping those things out at a cost of $2,500 per unit. And the president of the United States or the Secretary of Defense, War, whatever he calls himself, we don't have the wherewithal to say, hey, you've got a pretty good idea here. We could use some of that expertise in what you've got. Instead, we're saying, no, sorry, we don't need you. We don't need your help. You don't have how's it go? You don't have any cards? That's the treatment we've been giving them. And I think it's appalling.
He doesn't have any cards. He owns the house.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. I don't believe that we have a viable solution here, unless I'm missing something. Lee, do you think we have a viable solution? What do you see from what you're watching? And I mean, you're on top of this stuff all day, every day, and I watch it as much as I can. We all three, we collaborate behind the scenes as much as we can. But do you see an off ramp? Do you see any signs of us drawing down, pulling out, getting ready to put something into practice here, put theory into practice to leave?
It looks like a huge circle jerk to me. I mean, what I've seen, the drone defense that the Marine Corps is going to, I'm trying to wiggle here to get where I'm supposed to be. The drone defense that the Marine Corps has deployed to this point isn't some advanced system that's been incorporated on their ships. The Marine Corps is taking ATVs made by Polaris that have a radar system up on the corners of it, and it's a counter drone system, and they're strapping them down to the bow and the stern of their ship. That's the Marine Corps' anti-drone system.
I don't know what to say to that. I wish we would. I guess I wish we would actually just admit that we've kind of walked into a blunder here. I know that's not going to happen because everything. If you flip on Fox News or whatever, we're winning. Right? We're winning everywhere. We haven't made a mistake. And I heard Stephen Miller say that the president has thought out and it accounted for every possible outcome that there could be. I'm sorry. Tell that to the Europeans. Right?
There's no evidence. There's no evidence that he thought anything through. This is just the same bravado and braggadocio that we expect from the administration, only it's not coming out of just the president's mouth. It's coming out of his minions' mouths. They're behaving like toadies. They're a bunch of toad eaters. It's a group thing. This is the worst thing. This is what happened to Lyndon Johnson in Vietnam. Groupthink. There's a famous essay, there's a famous book about this, Victims of Groupthink, by Professor Janis, and it was about the Tuesday Lunch Club in the Vietnam War. Johnson had this group that met every Tuesday for lunch. They picked the targets for bombing. They managed the Vietnam War, and it was a whole group thing. Nobody would say no to the president. He would even, Johnson had this thing where if to show how people were subservient, he'd stick his feet up on their lap during the meeting, and they'd have to tolerate it. It was like, you better agree with the president. You better do what he wants. And so nobody had any criticism of the way they were running the war. They took over the war from the Vietnamese. Nixon had to Vietnamize the war. Yeah, get the Vietnamese to fight it. You got to have people, you have to have critical thinking. There's a thing called dialectics, where you discuss, where you say, well, let's do this. And someone says, no, what about this? Is there a problem? Oh, yeah, there's a problem. Well, why don't we try that? You have to have these kind of back and forth where the president says, well, why don't we do this? And everybody goes, yes, Mr. President. We'll do whatever you want, Mr. President. Doesn't work. This administration, now we see in its first real war crisis, it doesn't function properly. And you have this problem with people who are bureaucrats. And to the credit of George W. Bush, he had the problem that people were telling him what he wanted to hear. And he was telling people, your responsibility, you're responsible. They were screwing up. He had to actually do hands-on. He had to do the opposite thing. He had to say, well, my gosh, if I just let them do what they want, it's all a mess. Because they're not. And he had some self-criticism. He had a lot of lessons to learn on the job. He had some humility, George W. Bush had. This president, no. There's no filter there. There's no self-criticism. There's no connection in his mind with his own responsibility. And so I was hoping when we heard about this attack that there was going to be ground forces, because I knew that was the only way this was going to work. Because what happens with a cave or a bunker when there's American troops nearby? They're thinking, do we surrender, or are we going to be killed in our bunker by these American troops?
And now, how does this play? Okay, so he says, well, we're going to do Cuba next. Okay, and I say, yeah. I mean, I'm shaking my head at it too, but he says we're going to do Cuba next. So, are we prepared to deal with the consequences of that? There's a surprise if we take the drones out of it. There's another surprise hanging out in Cuba that they've probably not taken into consideration, and you know what that is. That's what we found down there. And
they
I don't
know
think
that's
we're
there.
prepared for that.
They know that's there.
Sorry?
I know they know that's there.
Okay. All right. So are they prepared to deal with that?
They want to deal with that.
Okay. All right.
Modern
Well,
warfare is like World War I in the sense that if you have perfected this mode of warfare, you can prevent troops from advancing. That's the problem. So even in terms of going into Iran, do we know the state of Iranian drone warfare? Are the Iranians as competent at this as the Ukrainians? No, but how close can they come? How many drones can they now send? Now we've got air superiority. We've attrited their drones.
No, we have air superiority over aircraft. We
Right,
don't have air
but not drones.
superiority
Yes,
over
that's a good
drones or air
point.
superiority over man
Well,
pads.
you can't use a $16 million aircraft anti-air missile to shoot down a drone that costs $5,000. That's not
Right.
something you can sustain.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're doing. You know, when I was telling you about the cost analysis, we're using a $3 million missile to shoot down a $20,000 drone.
Now, you
That's
can
what
do
we're
that
doing.
if the war only lasts 3 weeks and you win.
Right. Right.
But if you're going on, dragging on like this, you can't.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I've got a few ideas as to what I would do if it were me in command, but I don't want to put them out over the air. But I've got how I would handle it.
Shall we move to Belarus? Do you remember last night, Jeff? I said I was being told that there was a mobilization happening in Belarus because Russian intelligence. Well, Lee, you informed before Jeff came in that they're moving troops up against the border.
Yes, the Belarusians are moving troops into Brest as we speak. So they are saying that this is a training exercise, and they need to get all these troops into Brest as soon as possible. And so we're digging up details on it as we speak.
Brest. That'd be. I'm assuming they're all being shipped into the training grounds that are there because they've got plenty of room to put everybody.
Absolutely. It's been recently modernized. In fact, I'm going to fly it tonight. After the show, I'm doing another show after the news broadcast tonight with Duramax News, and we're going to fly Brest tonight to have a good look-see at it. I'm going to bring it up on a map here in just a moment for you as soon as I can get this thing loaded.
We're just FYI, we're not seeing your screen or you.
Yeah, give me
by the
1
way.
second and you will.
Yeah.
Nope, not that one. This one. The monster map. The map
still
that
can't see you.
brings servers to their knees.
So how many troops do you think they're moving to the border now, Belarusians? And what excuse are they giving for this mobilization now? What is the reason?
Give me one moment and I will give you the exact verbiage.
There's a threat to the government of Lukashenko, right? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what
Lukashenko's
Russian-
army is preparing military units near the neighboring countries. Large-scale defensive exercises have started in western regions of the country in the Brest region. On the Polish side, the 18th Mechanized Division is positioned in the best direction, while on the Ukrainian side, usually parts of the 14th and 30th Mechanized Brigades are present, as most of their forces are currently on the Eastern Front. And so they're saying that they are mobilizing forces to move to this area right here.
We
It sounds
cannot
like a
do that.
positioning. It's a positioning to attack. These are offensive positions, not defensive positions.
There we go.
So there's
Massive groups.
and they've done massive upgrades to this facility. Okay, so they put a track in. Oh wow, they got a new motor pool over here.
They've been doing a lot of expanding. The city of Brest has been massively expanding. They've been building brand new apartment complex. You know what? That's probably what all of it's for. They've been bringing in building brand new apartment complexes all throughout downtown. So I'll get to that in a minute. You go ahead. That's new.
Well, they have to have somewhere to house all these people who are building things there. Yeah, honey, I'm going out to build the
Yeah, that's
new motor
brand
pool,
new.
the new
What the hell
airstrip.
are
We
they
got to dig
building
more
there?
bunkers.
Yeah, where was that, Lee? Go back to that.
That's right
What
there.
is it?
They're building new shit in here. This is a brand new building right here going in,
Hmm.
and it looks like it's got a road going to go right through it.
That's brand new.
Yeah. Like I said,
That's
every
the- you know
time,
what that is?
dude, they
You know
are
what that is?
spending, huh?
Look at that. Look at how that's look at the way you go in and out of that thing. How it's got barricades in
Well,
there.
isn't that
That's
going
gonna be
into a
checkpoint.
tunnel under the road? Where is
No.
that going? No,
No,
it goes
this is
to the
going to be a
road?
check. This is a checkpoint. Look
Yeah.
at the way you have to drive in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think it's
You
checkpoint
have to
training.
you have to zig through. You
Yeah,
have to zigzag
but I think
through.
it's
That's going to be a
checkpoint
checkpoint.
training. Or how to run a checkpoint.
Or it could, checkpoint training. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's lined up straight with there. That's no doubt about it. You could move it one road over and it would be on the border. Yeah, that's brand new.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's checkpoint and inspection. Is what that is. Wow.
They have been expanding that whole area, but if we're
Yeah, look over
I see
here.
where you're at.
Look at there. New
Yes, sir,
obstacle
that's,
course.
That's new. Yep, that's new.
I kind of want to say that parking there is new. I know this is. All this was cleared out the last time. They cleared all this out up here. Yeah, they've added a lot of new buildings.
If you head further down there, you'll see where they've there. So they've got a runway there,
Yeah,
a short runway, 2 helipads, and they've put in trenches there to the right of it.
yeah,
You can
yeah. See that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't recall seeing that worn down as much as that before.
No, well they've been putting a lot of troops through there. They're not doing all these expansions for nothing.
What? Thought that was the whole purpose of this.
Yeah, right.
was just a show for us, not to actually do
Just
it.
to, yeah, just to show. Yeah, sure. It's just to show you. Here you go.
All right. Well, if they've done this much here, we need to run up here a second. They built buildings on top of their bunkers.
Well, those could be the entrances you drive into now.
Wow. Look at all the grass that's gone over here now.
Yeah, they've had a lot. Yeah, they've had a lot through there. Those are they had pop-up barracks there for a while, but they took them down.
That's a new range. Yeah, all this road and everything through here is new. This paved road all the way up through here.
Yeah, they've been putting the main roads that go in and out, up and down the course. They've been putting in hard concrete for all that because they've got so much going through there.
It's
They got so
interesting
many
that
tanks
they're
going through.
putting the Belarusians out front because it's always their habit to send the poorer troops up first, which is kind of counterintuitive, but they have this idea of the first strategic echelon in any attack is not the strongest troops because they expect them to be slaughtered. They expect them to hit the enemy and to weaken the enemy so the second strategic echelon could come up and do the real damage.
I
They seem
love
to
this
be
new
following
imagery,
this
man.
same-
You can actually see the ties in the railroad tracks. See there? For the targets. See the rails and the ties. Well, yeah, they're expanding. This is none of this is good. And then I'm still trying to get the list. I had it. I'm trying to find it again. The list of the 78 locations that the Russians are either adding on to, building, or opening, or reopening.
In these mobilizations and these, as they call them, training exercises, are we hearing anything about Haradna, or is it just Brest that we're hearing about?
The only thing I'm hearing about is Brest. It says the West, but it says that there's a large contingent of them in Brest. And it
Well, the
makes
reason
it
I
look
ask
like,
about Haradna is in between. So we've seen the
Right,
ISR that's
right.
going up and down the
Right.
border. So in between there, so in between Haradna and Brest are the other areas. So I've got them marked with white pins. You'll see white pins along the border somewhere. Those are the Chinese geolocation areas. And then, of course, that fuel depot is going to be near the northern white pin.
yep.
So I think if they're going to go, then if that's the case, then I think you have to include Haradna too. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the military unit that's in Haradna that I found out has been recruiting since last year for language specialists to speak Polish, English, Lithuanian, Latvian, and Estonian, I believe, all the languages. They've been recruiting those people, and they're being sent to the city of Haradna. They're recruiting them from all over Belarus, and they're sending them there, and they're paying them triple on contracts to become these language specialists, these language specialist officers. You don't do that. I'm sorry, gentlemen. You don't do that unless you're planning to carry out operations in those countries.
So they're not training people in German?
Not that they could be. I would assume at some
They
point.
probably have a lot of
Publicly.
German speakers as it is. Those other languages are probably not as well
Yeah.
widely
Publicly,
spoken.
publicly they're looking for those specific languages.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's German is probably common enough among in Russian education that even the president of the country speaks fluent German.
He does. Yeah.
Yes.
So I would include Hradna in that too. I mean, if we look at everything that's been put into that city,
Right, I
and
mean,
then
you know, look at
pathways
the-
that they have going.
Well, I think Hradna's, we saw it being built up earlier, but it's
Yes.
interesting that Brest is the city that the hub around Brest looks straight down. It's the shotgun towards Warsaw.
Well,
And if you
know,
want to
there's-
come down and cut Ukraine off,
exactly,
it's the place you launch out of to
exactly.
cut Ukraine from the NATO.
Exactly. If you were to cut across up here at the Suwalki and get everybody involved up here and then drive down across here, who's going to do anything about it?
And that's where 90% of the support for Ukraine is coming through that transportation corridor right now.
Yep.
Because you can't bring it through Hungary, and they're not really relying on Moldova and the Romanian border area as
Right.
much.
Well, that's so treacherous
Yeah.
to try to bring shit through
It's,
there anyway.
you're
Yeah,
gonna go up through the Carpathian Mountains. It's just not. I mean, it's not
It's,
feasible.
it's
especially
easier
this
to
time.
block. It's easier to block, and you have these major rivers you have to traverse, and Moldova is full of Russian agents. The Russians could interfere with supply lines running through Moldova. They've got the Transnistria enclave. They've got actual troops there.
Transnistria.
Yeah. So
Odessa was pounded last night. Residential areas were pounded last night with Russian drones.
oh, good grief! Residential areas. See, they can't.
Resident
I
apartment
mean, it's
buildings.
interesting. The Iranians can do a precision strike and take out radars and take out things. Why are the Russians so unable to do precision strikes?
Well, the Russians say, according to the Ministry of Defense, they say that the apartment buildings in Ukraine are legitimate military targets. And the reason they say that they're legitimate military targets is because they were built during the Soviet era, and they were built as bomb shelters. So, and troops are hiding in them. So that makes them legitimate military targets.
Well, that's their excuse that they can't hit
Yeah.
anything bigger than a neighborhood, anything smaller than a neighborhood. They got to hit the neighborhood because they can't hit the military target, right?
Well, it's not even the fact. I don't think they're trying to hit military targets, because you see these drones and you can see that they'll fly over one apartment building and then they'll fly into the next one. And I mean, they could just fly it higher, but they don't. They fly it intentionally right into the apartment building.
Terrorizing the people
Yeah.
in the, Well, they're trying to, it's a cold country in the winter. If people don't have an apartment, where are they going to take shelter? They attack power stations all winter, trying to shut off their power. They were having brownouts and power outages in Kiev. But those people, they've toughed it out. It's incredible what the Ukrainians people have done and what their troops have done. I mean, you talk about people determined to resist tyranny. My gosh, there's nobody in the world right now that stands taller than the Ukrainians in fighting tyranny. Nobody does.
Here's the question. If we had to deal with that in the West, would we tolerate it?
I'm afraid we've become very soft.
Yeah. that's my
I'm
point.
worried about that. People will start complaining, let's make peace. Let's not defend this. Let's give up. I think Americans, I hope not, that there's a lot of people in the world that would give up, but the Ukrainians, no. And by the way, the meeting in Riyadh of the Gulf states and the Saudis, I was worried they were going to buckle in, but they didn't. They have said that they are going to fight Iran, and the U.S., the White House reacted by saying, okay, we'll send troops. So that's at least a sign that the White House realizes they have to go in on the ground. They have to possess the ground, because it's from that ground that these drones and missiles are being launched from. And if they scour the ground, there won't be any, that's the only way. You got to cover it with troops. I
don't know how successful the Gulf states will be. Like I was saying, that they have ground forces, but they're for their own defensive purposes. They're not trained to operate in these other countries. They're not trained to really deal with it. They bring us in as they'll contract specialists to come in and train these units in the Gulf states. But as far as that, their military hardware. They got a lot of shiny stuff, but it's not really, as you put it, they've spent billions on it, literally preparing
Well,
for the kind of war.
I'm afraid that the size of Iran, the size of the country, it doesn't matter if these troops aren't capable of, doing offensive operations. You're going to have huge lines to protect. So you're going to need a lot of security troops. You're going to need troops that may not be good as frontline fighters as launching an offensive, but they can hold a line, or it could protect a supply line, or could scour the ground for enemy positions or units that are behind you and isolate them. So I would not say such troops are useless. If you can airlift them in, if you can supply them by air, if you can, look, these people are invested. You need bodies. People talked about using the Kurds. There's a problem with using the Kurds in that Iran is a multi-ethnic country, and you could be, by doing that, you could be inadvertently setting up a civil war in which it becomes then a quagmire that goes on and on. You want this to be clean, so you have to think out who you're going to use and how you're going to use them, and the political and moral effects of who you use. And of course, I'm not an expert in Iran. But there are people who are, that should be advising on this, how to do this. They need to be, hopefully they're all working on this right now, because, it's going to be a catastrophe through April, but they've got to end this regime by May 1st. I don't see how they could do it before then. And probably, given what we've seen in their ability to run a war, they probably will be still in this in September. If that's the case, our standard of living in the United States is going to drop significantly. And what you see on the shelves as far as food is going to be less. And what you have in your bank is going to be worth less because of the massive inflation. And we don't know how bad this can get, but this could be like the Great Depression that would be triggered from this.
We've pulled we've pulled 100 key personnel, and we've sent them to CENTCOM HQ in Florida, or Southcom HQ in Florida. So they've been told that they're going to be on this deployment until September. So if that's your timetable,
yeah,
then they're already set up for that.
And you have
Lee, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, you have a domestic problem in that you're going to get a political thing when you get to November. You've got the elections, the midterms. You're going to have a political mechanism starting in January. And because this war was not launched with Congress's approval, this war was launched without public support. Only about a third of the people in the country in the U.S. are supporting the war. If you don't get mobilized more support by next year, they're going to impeach the president. They're going to impeach the vice president. They're going to put a Democrat in there, and they're going to pull out and give the Middle East to Iran and make some kind of a deal. That's what they're going to do. I mean, you can read this. It's like the Vietnam War. I mean, we won the Vietnam War, except the Democrats got control of Congress. And in 1975, January, they just voted to cut Vietnam off from everything. And it fell to the communists. There was no reason for that, except that the Democrats are their own kind of flavor of crazy. All that sacrifice, all that loss, you're going to make it permanent. You're going to make Iran's control of the Strait a thing so they can dictate to the entire world. That means they can not only dictate to the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, they can dictate to Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Europe. Bye-bye to your allies. Say hello to America being isolated with a hostile Canada, thanks to Trump, and a hostile Mexico. How does that look? Now we're not a world power, we're a regional power, and we're trapped and we're surrounded. Standard of living? Maybe, if you're lucky, half of what we have today. If you're lucky. GDP
no one will trade with
crashed.
Yeah. No one will trade.
Nobody will trade. U.S. Navy can't afford it. Yeah, you won't be able to afford a big Navy.
Yeah, not good no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody asked, they said, my girlfriend is a Ukrainian from Zaporizhia. She always asks why Europe doesn't help them. And well, even though Europe is in the same boat that Ukraine is in, because they're next in line, it's like they're sitting on the bow of the boat while the stern of the boat is sinking. And everybody in Ukraine that's on the stern of the boat is doing everything they can to bail water out. The Europeans sitting on the bow of the boat going, well, I'm glad it's their end that's sinking. The Europeans and the Americans, well, they want to make money off of Ukraine. If you look at what the Biden administration charged the Ukrainians to deliver the arms that were delivered to them, you'll find that a lot of people in the Biden administration got tens of millions of dollars in kickbacks. In fact, some of them close to $100 million in kickbacks from the Ukrainian government. The reason that they did was because of the demands that the U.S. put on the Ukrainians. It's a known fact that the U.S. said, yes, you can have these weapons, but you have to pay these millions and millions and millions of dollars to have them transported to Ukraine through these specific companies. The Ukrainians are like, we have our own planes. We don't need to transport it that way. And the Americans said, if you want the weapons, you're going to pay to transport them this way. And that's how the Americans, the Democrats that were all funding this war, have made a fortune off of the war in Ukraine. It's blood money as far as I'm concerned, and I've been pointing this out for over a decade. The simple fact is that the U.S. wants to drain, under the Biden administration, wanted to drain the Russian military. And so they would only provide weapons to the Ukrainians just to keep the Ukrainians holding on. They would never deliver what needed to be delivered to end the war. They wanted to slowly bleed the Russians and destroy the Russian economy, and they used the blood of the Ukrainians to do it. Trump decided, I don't want to help it at all. I'm getting out of it. It's not my war, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And he's gotten out of it altogether. The problem is the Europeans have still not picked up the pace enough to help the Ukrainians. And that's because they would rather do the exact same thing that the Americans would. Rather than the kickback, they would rather the Ukrainians die in Ukraine and just give the Ukrainians enough for the Ukrainians to hold on and hold off the Russians and keep the war in Ukraine as opposed to letting it get to the borders of Europe. The problem is the Russians are already up against the Baltics. The Belarusians are already up against Poland. So they can go across at any time. Hell, they're right in the middle of Europe when you consider looking at what they have and what they've installed in Kaliningrad. And that's another thing, Johnny. I want to go into that tower that they put the net over in Kaliningrad.
Yes.
And talk about the other ones.
Yeah, let's do that. If you want to pull that up, we can do that. And then we'll go to the other places if you want. Or do you want me to pull it up?
I got it right here.
Okay. I'll need access to your. We can't see your screen, so whoever's running that,
Oh,
I will need to see that unless you've got it.
Racer, share that with him, please.
No, when Ukraine was invaded in 2022, all of Europe should have been a wake up call to all of Europe. All of Europe should have mobilized when that happened, but they haven't done anything. They're doing things, but it's not.
4 years later.
Yeah, and it's still I still get the feeling that it's not sincere. You know, it's not, they're not moving fast enough, if you will. For example, Macron just announced yesterday the new French carrier, which has been in development for years, that will replace the Charles de Gaulle. But this carrier from France won't be in active duty until 2038.
Wow.
When does the Charles de Gaulle retire?
I don't know, but it would have to retire right around that time, I would think. I don't know if it can make it to
Well, see,
2030.
the thing is, when you're building large capital ships and you're doing things like that, it's a huge time to develop these things. And the thing is that by that time, don't you think aircraft carriers will be obsolete? They're going to be obsolete. They're developing a weapon that takes them, 30 years to develop, and not realizing that by the time they get there, what they're going to need is a submersible drone carrier, which is a lot cheaper and it's going to be a lot more effective, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right? Lee? Don't you think submersible drone carriers are going to be the thing? A whole bunch of little ones?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, a submarine that's full of drones, that'd be. Pretty crazy.
And the Chinese are working on that now. All right. Anyway, so you've got our favorite building pulled up here. So you want to zoom out a little bit and show people exactly what this is. So we've been seeing a lot of activity. They've reinforced and upgraded this facility in the last year or so. They've added a third fence, as you can see around there. So you got 3 fences. I would venture to say that all of those are probably electrified, given the amount of juice that they've got going into this facility, and we're going to explain why that is. They've cut defensive trenches on just about every corner of this place, right out front, to the east, and to the west, and to the south, and just about everywhere. Now, I found out what this facility actually does. This is, you would look at this building here, where it's got the drone net around it, and you would think that this is an office building, right? Just by looking at it. No, that's not what this is. This is the backbone of the Russians' early warning system. What you're looking at is an early warning radar. This is not an office building, this is a radar. And this particular facility right here, the way that it's positioned, can see to almost New York, where it is. It has a range of 6,000 kilometers in every direction. All of their systems that are in Kaliningrad, all their radar systems, all their targeting systems, all of their missile systems, all their S-400s, their S-300s, and SS-27s, everything else they've got in there is all tied into this one facility right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's
So
how
now,
many of these buildings are there now? These
there's
sites?
at least 5. Yeah, there's at least 5 of these installations across Russia. The Ukrainians actually hit one in Krasnodar Krai. They hit one. I don't know how to send you lat lawns in here. I'll have to. Okay, here's.
Don't worry
here's
about it. We
chat.
can go to the next one. Or can you do it here?
Okay, but yeah, they've got about 5 facilities like this, and I've tracked them all down. They're all pinned out on the map. But they've built these things, and you and I were looking at one that's around the north. I can actually, if you zoom out and you go over to Russia, I can show you where that is without giving you a lat lawn. It's over towards it's far up north, and it's over towards, I think, yeah, right up there. Go further north, that double one up there. Right there, that's it. And then that's the big sat thing. We'll look at that in a second. The one, it's to the west. Right here.
There's the building. There's the tower.
There's the building. Yeah.
You come over
And then
here,
they're building more.
There's a
Yeah.
building and there's a tower. This is a different radar. Look at that shit.
This facility here, this will allow them to see, and then of course they've got others out in Siberia that I found as well, other sites out in Siberia. This will allow them to see over the North Pole down into the Northwest Territories and Nunavut in Canada. So anything that's coming up over the pole, they're going to be able to see it from here.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we got any questions here. Got questions? Put them in the chat here. Well, yeah, Brian, but you got to do that at a bunch of locations. Not just a matter of just taking buildings out at one location. The way I know that they're building 76 is because I got a report from somebody who's tracking them, and I've got to go back and find the report. It actually was listed. The Russians actually announced that they were doing it. It's a military. It's part of the mobilization. Go find the documents talking about the mobilization and the installation, improvement, or reopening of 78 locations along the Western Front. Yes, they're talking. There's military operations starting today in Belarus.
You might want to double check this, Lee, or you, start asking around. I think the Israelis have just hit Azerbaijan.
Okay.
There's supposedly Iranian targets in Azerbaijan. That was the reason for them hitting it.
Okay, so Mark is saying that the training is in both Minsk and in Brest Oblast.
Minsk.
Yeah, that's right. The capital of Belarus. We talked about all the training camps around Minsk before.
Yeah.
So they're saying
yeah.
that this training
There's a-
exercise is in both
there's a whole
Minsk
bunch of
and
them,
in
yeah.
Belarus, in Brest.
Yeah. And didn't you say, Lee, that a lot of foreign mercenary types are
Yes.
coming from South America and Africa to train around Minsk?
Yep. Cuba,
And-
South America, Africa, the Middle East, they're all being sent into Belarus.
I wonder how many of the troops that this is the thing that keeps nagging at me. How many of the troops that Russia is actually fighting the Ukrainians with are Russian? And, are they getting rid of the parts of their population they don't like
Yes.
people who are drunks, criminals, Muslim minorities that they don't like?
Yep.
Are they using this to demographically, recraft their country?
Absolutely.
And if this is the case, then how serious have they been in terms of fighting the Ukrainians? Is this just a holding action while they're preparing to attack NATO?
Yeah,
there's a
I
question.
actually think it's a training exercise.
Yeah.
And it's a way that Putin can get rid of what he considers subhumans in Russia. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I ran this by AI, and AI said I was crazy. I said, well, then look at the percentage of people who have been recruited from poor areas of Russia as opposed to the percentage of people who have been recruited from Moscow or St. Petersburg. And the AI came back and said, yeah, you're right. It's way unproportional or disproportionate. The number of people who have been recruited from slums and lower income regions is way higher. In fact, when you look at all of the people that have been recruited to go into the war, AI came back and said that of the total number of people recruited or pulled off the streets, what have you, enlisted into the war, less than 2% came from St. Petersburg or Moscow. So less than 4% total have came from St. Petersburg or Moscow. They came from everywhere else. Yet the largest two cities in all of Russia are St. Petersburg and Moscow.
So it was probably mostly officers that are coming from St. Petersburg and Moscow. Yeah, you see, I wonder, Lee, if the quality of the troops, when they get to taking Russians and they get to taking the better quality Russian citizen as into the army, that the army now with new tactics, with new methods, the Russian army doesn't become somewhat transformed. With all this fodder, useful fodder around it to protect its flanks, it's able then to have an elite strike force using drones like the Ukrainians are doing and other new methods that they're able then to sweep the battlefield. Is that possible?
Yeah, the U.S. is not prepared for what's going on here. The Ukrainians have capabilities that the U.S. doesn't have and have capabilities that the Russians don't have. But there's and I'm sorry, I forgot the second half of your question.
Yeah, that now they're going to sweep the battlefield because the Russians have the advantage that we don't know they have because they're basically playing possum in Ukraine.
Right.
Not just using it as a way to get rid of undesirables because they know their system's going to have financial contraction. They're sending 60-year-old pensioners to the front to die as cannon fodder.
Yeah, and guys who have been laying in a hospital with holes in them.
People that they would have to pay out of their budget to take care of. So what they're doing is they're lowering their budget commitment to people that they would have to take care of in advance of a war. That's very ruthless and it's like a form of euthanasia, euthanizing people legally not gassing them, just sending them to the front and purposely. I mean, is that what they're using Ukraine for, to kill these people?
Right, to get
Is
rid of the
that
people and
possible?
to practice, to get rid of the people and to practice for the war with NATO. This is, there's a long video. It's about 38 minutes long, and it explains about the advantage of bringing the U.S. having three carriers in attacking Iran, and having the three carriers there coming from three different angles, and how great it is. And there's two there fighting, and now here the third one comes, and it's full of weapons, and so on and so forth. And then the Marines are coming. So what happens when all three carriers are out of bombs and all of the warships are out of missiles? What happens then? They got to come back to the United States to get reloaded. We don't have this capability in foreign ports to do all of this. So, that would be the perfect time for China to go after Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea, and Russia to move on the Baltics and the Suwalki Gap and Ukraine. And China is already pouring weapons into Iran. So we're seeing that day after day.
Are we seeing? Because I just saw a speech that was just given by the commander of the armed forces of Yemen, and they've just been put on full like the highest alert of the combat readiness, and they say that they're ready to jump into this. The Chinese are pouring stuff into Yemen as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CEO of Rheinmetall today said that the U.S. will be in a bad scenario for bombs within a month from now if this war continues. I don't believe that, and let me tell you why I don't believe that. When we first went into this offensive, we were using very high precision weapons to strike very strategic targets. And if we had continued doing that for the duration of this, then I would agree with the president of Rheinmetall that we would be in a hard way. But that's not what we've done. So they originally went in with the precision stuff and took out the very strategic and important things that needed to be taken out. And I'm going to give you a prime example of what they did. They have hundreds of bunkers, thousands total, all over the mountains of Iran that have missiles and drones and weapons and so on and so forth in them. Each one of those bunkers is a secure bunker. It's locked, it's secured, it's got a big heavy door on it, you can't break into it, it's a vault. Now, the people that protect that vault and the people who fire those missiles and fly those drones, they live in buildings above the ground around that installation. So what the United States did was, while all those people were gathered in each of those buildings, they went through and obliterated all of those buildings simultaneously, basically killing everyone that was there, destroying the passwords and codes and the keys and access to all of those underground bunkers. So is that, first off, there's nobody that knows how to get into the bunkers that's there. There's nobody that knows how to launch the drones or fire the missiles because everybody at the site has been vaporized. And so now, instead of having them worry about them launching those, now that the other key things have been destroyed, instead of coming back with precision munitions, they're coming back with about a $30,000 to $80,000 bomb with a $60,000 nose and fin kit on the back of it, and they're dropping these conventional dumb bombs with these adapter kits. And the magazine for those dumb bombs is huge. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of those. So it's good that we are dropping those and getting rid of those. So if we were to continue to do this using precision munitions, And the high-end stuff, absolutely the CEO of Rheinmetall would be correct. But we've transitioned over to getting rid of the old dumb bombs, and we've got shitloads of those. We've been making those for decades. All right, anything else, guys?
No, I would like to apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties that we've been suffering. Thank you all for putting up with it and staying with us. So I'd just like to say that. I know it's difficult and it's frustrating. And then thank you to everybody behind the scenes that's working on the production staff to get all this back up and running in another way. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you there. Jeff, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think you always have to think outside the box because it's clear Iran was outthinking us and ahead of us. You look at the Russians and Chinese, they play a long game. They're always thinking ahead. You look at the supposed mistakes they make. They have basic weaknesses. They know about these weaknesses. They can't avoid making these mistakes, but they turn their mistakes by thinking strategically into opportunities. And this is what I'm afraid we are not really thinking about and doing. And so we're missing the threat coming out of Mexico and Cuba, Venezuela. We don't understand that, China's mobilizing, Russia's mobilizing, Belarus is mobilizing, Venezuela has mobilized, Ukraine we're at war, Iran we're at war with. What don't we see about a world war mobilization in all this? And they're not stopping. If they thought they were going to lose, if they thought that they were losers and they don't have anything compared to the mighty United States, why are they continuing down this path? So that's the
They're
thought
still
I
hitting
wanna-
targets. They're still hitting targets every day, every hour.
Yeah, but I mean, the strategically, not the, of course, Iran,
yes.
we're at war with Iran, but strategically, they're mobilizing in Russia and China. It's not like they're deterred. Nothing we've done frightens them, apparently. And nothing Ukraine has done really frightens them. So what do they know that we don't? See, that's the thing I don't understand. People say over and over again, month after month, Putin is finished, Putin is this, Putin is that, China is finished, Xi is besieged. What the Ukrainians say, there's an internal coup threat against Lukashenko. The Chinese say there's an internal coup threat against Xi. So they're mobilizing? When Russia's mobilizing, when there's war in the... No, this is not, there's no coup threat. This is an excuse for mobilizing. We're looking at World War III mobilization. That is a logical conclusion. I stick with that. Let's hear the counter arguments, but I think I've got a pretty powerful argument. We're looking at World War III mobilization now. Whenever that beginning of that war is in the fall next year, they're preparing for it.
Yeah, and we're seeing that with the communications that are being cut. We were looking at last night, we were looking at whether or not we could place telephone calls to inside Russia, and that's not possible. The way you were breaking it down, these calls, regular telephone calls, through a landline, through a hard line.
Yes.
Forget the mobile calls.
Yeah.
But
They're cutting off the country from the outside, and people think, oh, they don't want our truth to reach them. No. They have a truth, which is their mobilization. They don't want us to fully realize what's happening inside Russia.
Correct.
And our leadership is so blind about Russia and so deluded, they're likely to write off all the signs they see from satellites of mobilization and say, it's just an exercise. Putin's doing this because he's about to fall, right? This is the excuse they're going to make. They've already cushioned this. They've already created the narrative to the Maskarovka because it's perceptions management. You can see somebody pointing a gun at you and you can laugh and say, oh, you're a clown pointing that gun at me. No, this person intends to shoot you. It's a matter of how you perceive what they're doing. And this business of us being cut off from attacks on the server, service denial attacks. I mean, what is it that we're saying that somebody doesn't want anybody to hear? I mean, if we're just a bunch of clowns sitting here spouting off, why do we get this?
This is
People
very
have to
true.
ask. There's something serious we're saying, that we're warning about that somebody doesn't want to go out there.
Yeah, so a couple questions here before we get out of here. How will the National Guard respond after an EMP? They won't. Got sirens in Israel. Are Russia and China mobilizing more because they expect to profit at GSM and big space and Earth change times? No, they're trying to survive. Russia was one of the first countries in the world to acknowledge that we were going into a grand solar minimum. And that's one of the reasons that they wanted Crimea, because they needed a warmer weather port than what they have, because all of their ports freeze over in the wintertime. That's why they wanted Crimea. Plus, they want Ukraine because it is the breadbasket of Europe, and they need to be able to feed the Russians. In fact, the Russians have even started building greenhouses in Siberia so that they can deliver veggies and things of that nature locally as opposed to shipping them all the way up there. So, yeah, a lot going on over there. Let's see. Is it more likely that our enemies would take out the whole country with an EMP and not just part of our country? Yeah, they would want to be able to do the whole thing at once.
Yes,
Would
it'd
be
be
my
over like
opinion.
Nebraska or something, to where they could get it all. And that would, the blast radius, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, that would hit down to pretty much almost down to the south of Florida, almost.
Yep.
Well, they may not do it because of fratricide against their forces in Cuba and Mexico.
I don't think it would go that far south. I think it cuts off
It's line
right
of
at that
sight.
line.
They have
Yeah.
to put it, what is it, Lee,
250 miles up. I think.
21 miles above the earth?
You have
line
to
of
go
sight?
across the whole part of the country, but it only takes 53 seconds. So if you fire one, if you're in international waters off the east coast of the United States on the North Carolina, South Carolina border, and you fire one due west, and then if you're in the Gulf of Mexico, in international waters, and you fire one, you're south of Houston, and you fire one due north, and you're off the coast of San Francisco in international waters, and you fire one due east, 53 seconds after a Korean Air missile, because you could use a Hawk missile for this, and there's plenty of missiles out there. They could use a Korean War Air Hawk missile, and 53 seconds later, you would have 75% of the grid in the United States down. So, if not the entire thing.
Now, would we be able to retaliate on their grids? How
Well,
vulnerable would they be?
Who fired it? That's the question. Who fired it? Did North Korea fire it? Did China fire it? Did Russia fire it?
Don't we have a policy, which we should have, is that anybody fires at us, Russia and China get EMP'd too?
Well, it should be, but
should be.
But it's
Because that way, then
like-
the Russians and, a dead man switch is a good idea, because the Russians and Chinese then are going to have to help keep their own little flunkies in line to make sure they don't launch such an attack.
yeah. Well,
This is the problem with our doctrines, is we're to retaliate against the country where the launch originates from. So we would hit North Korea, or we would hit Belarus, or, Iran, or whatever. We never touched the actual, the source of the problem,
I
right?
mean, even Seymour Hersh, that communist, wrote about the Samson option by Israel, that if Israel gets hit by a nuke, they're going to nuke Russia. Right? If they get hit by a nuke from Iran, they're going to hit Russia.
Well,
They're going to blame Russia.
They know where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have our doctrine, right?
All their
They-
nuclear engineers, all the Iranian nuclear engineers were trained by the Russians. Basically,
Yeah.
this is known.
That's-
There's been
it-
newspaper articles about it for years. Yeah.
They know where the source of the problem is.
I think they don't. I think there are arguments why they would not want to use an EMP on the U.S. because I do think nuclear plants would melt down. I've talked to people in the nuclear industry. Yes, they can pull the cores out, but they don't train on that. And
Yeah,
if
but they
they
can
hesitate
scram
even
'em.
for a few minutes, it's too late.
They can scram them. Everyone has
Yeah,
the ability to
yeah,
scram.
but once you lose that coolant, you only have minutes to decide. And a lot of these people, they've done. I've talked to somebody in the nuclear that was in the power industry, and they said they thought it was a 50-50 deal whether specific plants would actually do that procedure.
Wow.
I mean, look at what happened at Chernobyl. You have something out of the ordinary, and where you're going to have to basically destroy the plant, and who's going to make that? Who's got the guts to make that decision?
Right, but at Chernobyl, the guy was doing shit he shouldn't have done in the first place.
Well, yeah, but then he had an emergency and he made the wrong decision.
Right,
People,
right.
we think these people are gods who control these things. They're not. They're human beings who make horrible mistakes. And if you're not trained on something, it's like, where's the manual? How do we do this? Do they actually know how to do it in their mind? Or do they have to hunt for them? Wait a minute, the manual was supposed to be here. It's not. How many minutes go by? Once you reach a certain point, you can't make it happen. So I don't know, talking to people in the industry, not talking to some publicist who's going to assure everybody, but talking to a realistic person who knows whether they drill on this. And I've heard they don't. I hope they're drilling on this because, and I think the Russians know this danger. I think the Chinese know this danger. And the other thing is that how you're going to occupy a country, you've destroyed the power infrastructure. How do you invade the country? When you take how many miles in and you have no electricity, you can't pump water out of the ground? How are you going to drink anything? And you've poisoned, the result of that is the groundwater is going to be poisoned everywhere, right? Because where's the sewage going to go? How's everything going to work? You've destroyed all the systems that manage, that keep everything safe and sanitary. So your troops are going to get sick just coming in the country, or they're going to have no water to drink.
They're not going to have any fuel. They can't
They
go.
won't have any fuel, no. They'll have to drag everything. So I don't know. And then you have nuclear retaliation. Are the people in the bunkers in the U.S. going to figure out who did this to them? Are they going to be able to send a signal to a submarine that you haven't hunted down and they're going to retaliate on you? It's a huge risk. You know, people are kind of the reason why there's not been a nuclear war is there's this risk aversion to it. I think the greatest risk of nuclear war was in the early 80s. They were determined to do it, and they were smart enough to know, but they didn't have a lot of this EMP stuff figured out as they do now. They developed those EMP bombs in the 80s. And I think I think that everything is with the larger world population and what they're trying to do politically, you have to worry about the political blowback in your own economy and country. They need to capture farmland intact, right? They've got this grand solar minimum. How many winters before it's bad? On Sunday, it had a giant blizzard in Michigan. They got 3 feet of snow.
Right.
In Michigan, in March, in mid-March.
Right. We've
I
already
lived
got
up there
buds on
for
the
4
trees
years.
down
I never
here, and
saw
we had-
snow like that in Michigan in March.
Yeah, we had 2 nights of 30 degrees down here, and we've already got buds on the trees.
Yeah, look, it's coming, and we're just seeing, just the leading edge of it is nothing compared to what we're going to get in the next 4 winters. It's going to
Right.
get. I mean, I was shoveling, a 1.5 feet of snow out of my driveway a month and a half ago in North
Right.
Carolina. All my neighbors are shaking their heads like this hasn't happened in decades. When did this happen last?
Right.
So we're headed into it. There's no doubt. Valentina Zarkova and others are right about this. And so they have to be careful not to screw themselves. They've got political forces in the U.S. that will cooperate with them, like the Democratic Party. Yeah.
Yeah, until they take power. Once they take power, then that's going to be the end of them.
All right, I got a couple comments here in the chat. It says an EMP would cause a nuke response. It won't cause a nuke response if you don't know who fired it. Do you think
And
that
I don't
there will be
think,
a mass
on that
mobilization
point,
draft in the U.S. by 2030? No.
The nuclear response to an EMP attack, I don't know, and this is information that's far beyond my understanding, but I don't know, and I don't know if the late Peter Pry talked about this. Are our systems hardened for that? Our silos, our responses are.
Military systems and nuclear warheads are hardened, yes. But
Okay.
no, you know, if you talk to Pry about the Russians have a super EMP weapon. We developed it. We never deployed it, as far as I know. Maybe we did secretly. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
not
the
that I'm aware of.
Russians definitely have it. The problem with that weapon is it's never been tested in combat before. It might destroy warhead components in our ICBMs and their silos. It might, but we don't know. You know, and nobody knows if the U.S. gets hit by a EMP, there could be a very paranoid reaction against Russia and or China, depending on who's calling the shots at that moment. You look, Trump is pretty crazy. You know, just listening to him brag about what he can do to Cuba. And the way he started this war and put the oil infrastructure, you know, of the Middle East at risk, and got his allies cut off of their oil supply from the tankers. I don't know. You know, he's kind of unpredictable. So I don't know if that protects us. Look, if they could have won World War III by EMPing us, why didn't they do it already? They could have
think
done
they're
this
ready.
10 years ago. Why? Because they're not ready. They're not confident about it. You know?
Yeah, I don't think they're ready yet. All right, folks, if you have not subscribed, now's the time to do so. Go to kwworldnews.com, get signed up there, VIP or above. Also, you can follow us. Our links are in both the title and the description to this video. So with that, folks, thanks for being here. You guys got anything else you want to add before we leave?
Thank you for all the follows and the support that everybody has shown. If you would like to support the investigative work that we do over on my channel, then please visit the social media page, the X feed that I've got. You can find the support link there, and I believe, Jeff, you have support links at your website as well.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Anytime. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day, everybody.
That's all, folks.
So